There's still no response from Washington. It looks like we'll have to show them that we mean business. The President will break. He will give in to our demands. We're going to dig in here.
We can still escape.
We've got the most powerful weapon ever made.
You're going to fight the whole world?
What's wrong with that? We can launch a nuclear warhead at any target on this planet.
So it's come down to it, has it? Monster. Ride it all the way into history. What about your promise to Colonel Dolukovich?
I have no interest in the revival of Mother Russia.
You're not thinking of reviving Big Boss's dream.
When he was young, during the Cold War, the world needed men like us. We were valued then. We were desired. But things, are different now. With all the liars and hypocrites running the world, war isn't what it used to be. We're losing our place in a world that no longer needs us. A world that now spurns our very existence. You should know that as well as I do. After I launch this weapon and get our $1 billion, we'll be able to bring chaos and honor back to this world gone soft. Conflict will breed conflict. New hatreds will arise. Then, we'll steadily expand our sphere of influence. A world where warriors like us are honored as we once were, as we should be. From today, call this place Outer Heaven.
Warning, 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 warning.
It all went down 5 hours ago. Next Generation Special Forces, led by members of Unit Foxhound. They've presented Washington with a single demand, and they say that if it isn't met, they'll launch a nuclear weapon.
A nuclear weapon?
I'm afraid so.
What's the time limit?
24 hours. They say they'll launch after 24 hours.
Do they say what the target will be?
So far, they haven't mentioned the target.
Do they really have the ability to launch a nuclear missile?
They say they do. They even gave us the serial number of the warhead they plan to use.
Was the number confirmed?
I'm afraid so.
Terrorists have taken over a secret military installation. They have nuclear warheads and a list of demands. The government has a retired special operative. Code name, Solid Snake.
This is Snake. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Metal Gear Solid is the best PlayStation game so far.
Starting to feel a little scared.
It has it all. Terrorist activity, secret operations, and a lone gunman, and that's before you even get started. Infiltrate a top-secret base and get past enemy forces. The word here is stealth. You're actually rewarded if you don't eliminate them.
Don't move!
But some situations call for a more direct approach. It's a one-man mission, but you're not totally alone. Konami gives Metal Gear Solid 5 out of 5. Lives up to the hype. Happy sniping.
Like the original Metal Gear games on the MSX, Metal Gear Solid is a tactical espionage action title. What does that mean?
It means that the wise man avoids danger first. Use your brain to avoid traps and stay away from the enemy.
Snake, don't forget this is a covert operation. There are lots of bad guys and only one of you. If you're spotted, you'll be surrounded before you know it.
If that happens, you're finished.
It means that the objective of the game is to infiltrate behind enemy territory, to gather intelligence, and to neutralize a terrorist threat. That's the first thing to say about MGS1. Unlike other warfare-related games,
This war is peace.
this game is about saving lives and minimizing encounters with the enemy, preventing war, not fighting one.
Well, I'm not gonna let these maniacs start a war today.
But it's also a game about information.
As usual, this is a one-man infiltration mission.
Weapons and equipment OSP.
Yes, this is a top-secret black op. Don't expect any official support.
Unfortunately, all I can do from here is provide you with information.
That information is so highly classified that even I can't look at it.
We now know that hereditary factors are far more crucial for creating superior soldiers.
Even though the map of Snake's journey into the heart of Shadow Moses resembles one long hallway, MGS1 gives players more than one way to carry out Snake's mission. And it's precisely the game's dynamic balancing act that it strikes between linear and open-ended design elements that makes MGS1 so revolutionary for its time. MGS1 was a muddy and murky game even upon release, and this was actually on purpose. According to the game's art director Yoji Shinkawa, quote, "Metal Gear sometimes looks very poor graphically. It's difficult to discern the characters from the backgrounds. But I prefer to ignore the old way of making games. We want Metal Gear to be the sort of game that people have never played before." End quote. But what was it about MGS1 that people had never played before? Why is this game revolutionary? Let's take a closer look. Before Metal Gear Solid, the games industry tended to conceptualize story and gameplay as mutually exclusive registers of design. Blockbusters of the era like Final Fantasy VII or Resident Evil often relied on non-interactivity to convey their narrative ideas, events, and themes.
Jill, run for that house!
Biohazard.
Developers at the time were unsure if the heavy lifting required of proper storytelling could be entrusted to the player or conveyed through gameplay, as effectively as it could through pre-scripted, more traditional methods like literary dialogue and cinematic cutscenes. Story, this perspective held, is only there in a video game to motivate and contextualize the gameplay, as a distinct and strictly non-interactive component to the overall structure.
Open the wings.
Head to the station. I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Let's look at this moment early on in Final Fantasy VII to see the Pre MGS 1 paradigm in action. In this scene, party member Barrett confronts someone from his past. It's an important moment of character development for him that actually foreshadows the central conflict to come between the main protagonist Cloud and his antagonist Sephiroth. In short, it's a great piece of writing, production, and design by any standard that you'd come to expect from a novel, a film, or a TV show. Clearly, video games can meet the expectations of quality and convention that are found in earlier analog media, a point that Final Fantasy VII was perhaps created in part to illustrate firsthand. But what happens once this dialogue sequence ends? The player has been given the motive and the context to beat Dyne as Barrett, and the absence of other party members gets across a sense of the isolation that Barrett must be feeling. Up to now, Barrett has been established as a very closed-off and private character, and fighting all alone like this just drives home the personal nature of this confrontation. It gives Barrett complexity without contradicting the characterization that we've been given thus far. But despite all that, there's an unmistakable discontinuity here between story and gameplay. As soon as the fight begins, foreground and background reverse positions. The story goes from center stage to the periphery. Nothing about the number crunching and tactical decisions the player now must perform correctly in order to win are part of the story per se. I mean, even the character models and environment reflect this shift as they too change from 2.5D to full polygonal 3D rendered in real time. One of the earliest things we learn while playing FF7 is what these two distinct visual registers are supposed to signify. One is for story and the other for gameplay. Okay, even if FF7's 2.5D sets and character models are technically interactive, little beyond moving your character around the screen is ever really possible outside combat in this game. And even in combat, character actions are choreographed in advance. You just select which of the various pre-programmed animations and attacks are going to occur. So a certain degree of distance from the characters, story, and events in FF7 is built into its design, much like other RPGs and games of other genres of the time. An even better example from FF7 happens earlier in Disc 1, when Cloud, like Barrett's confrontation with Dyne, is finally given a chance to develop as a character for one of the first times. In one of the game's most iconic sequences, Cloud recounts the tale of meeting Sephiroth and witnessing his fall from grace years before. It's a dramatic and story-heavy sequence that's monumentally important for everything that happens in the narrative. But it's not so coincidentally also one of FF7's least interactive stretches of gameplay. Combat in the flashback literally doesn't matter, which is there to make a point about how inexperienced and weak that Cloud had felt at the time relative to Sephiroth. You can't even actually tell Sephiroth what to do in battle, and for obvious reasons, XP is equally irrelevant. There's not even a boss fight, actually. No challenge of any kind, in fact. The Nibelheim flashback is meant to be a reprieve from all that, actually. Its occurrence is well paced to follow a particularly combat and gameplay heavy sequence that took place inside the Shinra HQ building, which itself had functioned as the narrative climax for the opening act of the game. So it's not in any way, shape, or form something I'm trying to criticize here. But the flashback does really showcase the bifurcated model, the dualistic model of game design, so to speak, that was so signature of even the best games of the era. The model that makes a sharp distinction between the functions of story versus gameplay.
Back to Twin Lakes.
Why, Snake? Is your life in Alaska all that great?
There's a dog sled race this week. Next Saturday, I have to be in Anchorage.
The Iditarod? The longest sled race in the world? I'm sorry, Snake. You will accept this assignment.
Why should I be stupid enough to do that? I'm no patriot.
You're a natural-born soldier. You're not the grow old gracefully type. It's the same for all of us who've seen real action. The only place we can feel truly alive is on the battlefield. I'm a soldier too. I know those feelings of powerlessness, frustration that you feel every day. You've tried to play the Boy Scout out there in Alaska, but you can't race dogs in the snow forever. Why don't you come back to us and be a soldier again?
You think my life is some kind of a joke?
Snake, I just want to give you back your purpose in life.
By using real-time polygons, jumping in and out of cutscenes and gameplay sequences happens without missing an instant. This not only heightens the immediacy and dramatic thrills you feel while playing, it blurs the line between you and Snake, between activity and passivity, story and gameplay. And the real-time 3D does this by its consistency of the level design's physical dimensions, which are conveyed and displayed through the dynamic camera angles. It all works together to heighten the illusion of having a first-hand experience within a real, actual reality. Though, as we'll see in a later episode, This doesn't necessarily imply that MGS1 is about realism. But equally important to this illusion is how MGS1 visually emphasizes, in the exact opposite of convention, environmental over character design.
How do they plan to launch?
Snake lacks most facial features and can't open his mouth, but look at the attention to detail in this SDV torpedo-like vessel that he uses to get into the facility. Look at this forklift, or these puddles, or this pulley system. By shifting focus onto solid shapes and material reality, MGS1 achieves an unprecedented degree of immersion within a physical space, a sense of being hyper-real. It represents a fundamentally new way of thinking about cinematic video games, and a new visual and formal language all of the medium's own. The game's innovative 3D, its dynamic camera, its detailed environments, they do more than just challenge conventions. Their true purpose isn't just to grow the medium, it's how they play off the narrative and themes of the game. Metal Gear Solid's formal characteristics, in other words, are not only important for being innovative and iconoclastic in their design, MGS1 just as seamlessly integrates concept with content, narrative with structure, and ideas with systems as it does by combining interactivity with non-interactivity via exclusive real-time 3D.
We don't need desk jockeys. We need backup from a specialist. I'm just an amateur when it comes to nuclear weapons.
I know. That's why I've requested the assistance of a military analyst named Nastasha Romanenko. She'll be providing you backup by codec.
A female analyst?
She's built up an impressive record as an advisor for the Nuclear Emergency Search Team. Contact her if you have any questions. She's also an expert on high-tech weapons.
Where's she working from?
At her home in Los Angeles.
California. Seems like 1,000,000 miles away. But even if they have a nuclear warhead, it must have been removed from its missile. All the missiles on these disposal sites are supposed to be dismantled. It's not that easy to get your hands on an ICBM.
That used to be true. But since the end of the Cold War, you can get anything if you have enough money and the right connections.
Excuse me.
Who's this?
Dr. Naomi Hunter. She's chief of Foxhound's medical staff and an expert in gene therapy.
Are you military?
No, civilian. I've been sent here from ATGC. Pleasure to meet you, Snake.
What was that injection for?
It's a combination of nanomachines and an anti-freezing peptide so that your blood and other bodily fluids don't freeze, even at subarctic temperatures.
Nanomachines?
Not just one kind, either. There are different types which will replenish the supply of adrenaline, nutrition, and sugar in your bloodstream.
That was quite a cocktail.
You're welcome.
Tell me about these next-generation special forces.
If you ask me, these so-called next-generation special forces should be called simulated soldiers. They have no real battle experience.
Video game players, huh?
They see the unit as their only family.
Looks like a lovely bunch of folks. Too bad we'll be meeting under these circumstances.
And finally, in charge of them, your former unit. An elite group combining firepower and expertise. They're every bit as good as when I was commanding them. There are 6 members of Foxhound involved in this terrorist activity. In charge of them, Foxhound's squad leader, Liquid Snake.
Liquid Snake?
Here's a photo of him. Pretty shocking, huh? His skin tone is different, but otherwise you two are exact duplicates.
I have a twin?
I don't know the details, but it seems so. That's why we really need you for this mission.
You're the only one who can beat him. Now that I've met you, I know. You've got something that he doesn't. I can see it in your eyes.
Why don't I find that thought more comforting? It's Snake. I'm in front of the disposal facility.
Excellent, Snake. Age hasn't slowed you down one bit. I'll let you decide the best COA. I'm counting on you, Snake.
This is Nastasha Romanenko. A pleasure to work with you, Solid Snake.
Master, what are you doing here?
First, I want you to infiltrate the disposal site and look for the DARPA chief.
The DARPA chief was injected with the same GPS transmitting nanomachines as you.
He should appear on your radar as a green dot.
Get whatever information you can from him about the terrorists. If he's alive, that is. He said if we try something like that again, he'll launch the nuke.
I need to borrow your scissors.
What are you going to do?
Don't worry, just gonna clean myself up a little.
Huh?
I don't want to be mistaken for the leader of the terrorists. Colonel, who are you speaking for?
Naturally, I'm representing the U.S. government.
So who's in supervisory control of this operation?
The President of the United States.
Which means that the President must be meeting with his top aides in the map room about now, huh?
No, at this point they're still video conferencing with each other.
If that's a real nuclear warhead, shouldn't they issue a COG?
Not yet. The Secretary of Defense has operational control and is fully aware of the situation. After you infiltrate, if you determine they possess nuclear launch capabilities, a COG will be issued.
Well, if they haven't relocated to the nuclear shelter under Mount Washington, I suppose there isn't that much reason to worry yet. Is the National Security Agency in on this?
Yes. So is the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency.
The DIA? I'm starting to get a bad feeling about this.